Welcome to another episode of CN Talks. Today we are pleased to have with us Mr. Constantine Komodromos, founder and CEO of VesselBot. Thank you so much for joining us. In an era where sustainability is no longer optional, but is a core business imperative, the maritime and the logistics industries face, as we say, mounting pressure to decarbonize complex supply chains. So, in this interview, we will explore the insights that fueled VesselBot's strategic pivot, the technical challenges of producing accurate multimodal emissions data, and real-world examples of how the platform is enabling companies to reduce their environmental impact while optimizing cost and operational efficiency. VesselBot started by offering digital solutions to the maritime industry and evolved into a full supply chain sustainability platform. What was the defining moment or insight that pushed the company to make this strategic pivot toward emissions intelligence and multimodal sustainability?
Basically, it was a couple of things. It's not just business change. It was a mission thing as well, if you like. To start with, we were seeing a lot of signs from the market interested to change itself because the shippers we were in contact wanted more information around the emissions being emitted from any transportation mode they were using. On the other hand side, a visit of mine in Parthenon was a bit, if you like, a wake-up call in the sense that it made me think, where are we today? Will these monuments exist in 100 years? Will our children's children be able to see these monuments in the way that we can appreciate them and visit them and be awed by the fact that they've survived for 2,000 years? So it was a combination of how can we leave a positive impact ourselves. On the other hand side, how can we do that in a resilient way? And resilience comes from not just being able to offer services, digital services, but also at the same time enable our customers reduce their emissions, have a positive environmental impact, at the same time, however, not negatively impacting their cost lines, their cost expenses. So it was a kind of combination of things rather than one single aspect of why this changed.
Okay, I understand. There are so many reasons, as we can say. Your platform claims an unprecedented accuracy through digital twin models for vessels, aircraft, and trucks. Can you explain what differentiates VesselBot's digital twin methodology from traditional emissions calculation tools relying on industry averages?
Okay. So we realized from the beginning that for any user to be able to take action, they needed to have real-time data that were accurate and granular enough so that it could enable their decisions. So from the first instance, we started building a lot of scientific models, if you like, in the sense that I'll give you an example. For every vessel, of every container vessel, we have their engine characteristics, their propeller, their auxiliary engine, main engine, boilers, TU capacity, all the lower breadth, so practically everything. And what we do is we use those data in combination, in conjunction with real-time data coming from AIS, so geospatial data, weather satellite data. So all the information that we can collect from across the board, whatever we can collect, and what we do is we simulate the power the engine needs to generate so that it can propel the vessel with a given speed, taking into consideration weather. So if we are carrying X amount of cargo and there is this speed and there is Y weather, how these come together and create a need for the engine to create a power such that would satisfy the requirements of the taking into consideration the engine itself, the vessel, and the conditions that the vessel came across. So that's how we go around estimating fuel consumption and respectively emissions. Okay.
Okay, thank you. I understand. So, right now, what do you see as the most technically challenging aspect of producing truly accurate multimodal emissions data, and how has VesselBot solved a problem that others in the market still struggle with, can we say?
I'll tell you, there are quite a few things that create a bit of a difficulty in this sense. So one of the biggest problems is that usually in many organizations we see that they have fragmentation of data. So lots of their own data sit in different systems, have different formats, have different way that they maintain it. There is no consistency across regions, across subsidiaries, across systems. So the uniformity of data, how they maintain the data, the type of data they're holding is inconsistent. On the other hand side, there is a lot of data that is being held by their carriers themselves. So the shipper themselves do not have the data that carriers do have in regards to the way that they are executing shipments. So how these data of the carrier can be retrieved and also come into one bigger database, data lake, where you can use them in conjunction with their own data. And then other data like the AIS data, telematics data, weather data, ADS-B, the satellite from aircraft, all these data, how can they complement and create a bigger picture for the shipper or even the calculation, the provider, the service provider like us, to be able to make the calculation. So first of all is the data that the shipper holds. Second is the data that is being held by the carrier, and then other data that you can collect from other places. And all these going into a model that can indeed utilize those data, because we might be collecting a lot of data, but if our models are using just an average, then you cannot do much with those data. So how can you bring all these together, all these data from different sources together, uniform them, make them harmonized, and utilize them to arrive at a proper calculation that is real-time, accurate, has that characteristic of granularity that enables decisions.
Okay, so it's, excuse me. It's a combination of different data that I understand, right? It's a combination of different data.
Correct. Different data sources, different types of data that you bring together and that enable us at least to do this calculation. And this is the problem we've solved. So how you bring all these data into one source and utilize through our models those data so that we can do a better job at calculating and providing visibility, increased visibility in real time for our customers to make decisions.
Okay, I understand. Integrating right now data from hundreds of carriers, as we say. It's using different systems, formats, and technologies. Is notoriously complex. What were the toughest technical and operational hurdles in building a platform that can unify all that information automatically, as we said before?
As you said, the data themselves are, although we've been taking steps to improve the data throughout the market, not just ocean transportation, over-the-road transportation, air transportation, all across the board. What we are seeing is that apparently there's no consistency in the data, and in many cases there's low quality of the data themselves. So being able to create those systems that use, take the data and make them usable, in the sense this is something that a system can utilize to produce meaningful information. This has been one of the barriers that we faced. However, we've built a lot of technology using artificial intelligence, machine learning, that does that and allows us to be able to have that quick turnaround of we integrate with another provider, and that becomes part of our data pipelines.
Okay. Right now, Scope 3 transportation emissions are often modeled using global averages, which you argue can hinder effective decision making. How does your focus on primary and high fidelity operational data change the quality of decisions companies can make around emissions reduction and supply chain design?
I'll give you an example. So averages means that you get from one carrier or 5 carriers, or you have one carrier over a trade lane. I'll give you the example of ocean or air, or doesn't matter, the same. So you aggregate. It means that you lose information from having an average. That aggregation means that if you wish to see how two different schedules probably of the same carrier are performing, you wouldn't be able to see that because you have the carrier perspective. I'll go a step deeper. Let's assume that you have, so all these aggregates come from historical data. They don't represent current operating patterns. So for example, we all know in ocean transportation, vessels are moving faster or slower depending on freight market. So in many cases, we have slow steaming because the market is not great and the freight rates are low. So the operators are slow steaming. That means that the fuel being consumed under certain circumstances might be lower. If you're looking at last year over this year, the market might have changed, the carrier may have changed their strategy for some reason, geopolitical events may have occurred, so you have Cape of Good Hope, Suez Canal closure, not closure, but the problem at Red Sea. So what happens? Then all these having last year's data and trying to make this year a decision, as you may understand, impairs your ability to use the current situation information and the real-time information, and you're using last year's data to make a decision for this year. As you may understand, this cannot really work. So this is the type of information that not just the aggregate prevents you from, but the data and how fast in each of these market of the logistics is changing prevents you from making any decision. So this is the problem that we're solving. This is a way that the way we are going about to provide our customers with that visibility to enable decisions, because exactly we have the granularity and the real-time data.
Okay. Yes. Okay. I understand. Right now, your platform doesn't stop at measurement. It aims to reveal hidden optimization patterns and opportunity for network redesign, consolidation, and alternative modes. Can you share a concrete example where VesselBot turned emissions data into a strategic operational change that reduced both environmental impact and cost?
So there is this misconception in the market that the available tools that we have is to go and buy biofuel or alternative fuels, and to a lot of extent the costly exercises that can be done, electrify fleets, all these kind of things. On the other hand side, what majority of organizations is not doing at the beginning is to identify whether there are inefficiencies in the way that they are operating they are executing their transportation and their logistics. And this is what VesselBot's way of approaching this problem brings. Why am I saying that? Because by consolidating all the data, we can have a bigger picture of how you're doing operations. And then, for example, you're using truck carrier A over truck carrier B, but at the same time, their cost is the same. So you could be shifting volumes between a carrier, ocean carrier, or a truck carrier, or an aircraft carrier, airline carrier, without impacting your bottom line, without adding any extra cost. For example, we've seen cases of customers of ours that they were dispatching truckloads every second day, and when they came in contact with their buyer, they said, okay, do you mind if we ship every 3 days? In that way, they had low consolidation of the container size they were using. They were using a 40-foot container, and it was by 2/3 filled. They could add additional volume into the container. So by doing this kind of collaboration with the customer or their supplier, they managed to reduce the volumes of their shipments. We had customers that they didn't have visibility across their emissions at all. And in the end, they went back to their carrier and said, how can we reduce our emissions together? From now on, we are adding an internal carbon price to the emissions that you are emitting on top of your freight cost, and we will be assessing you based on that internal carbon price. Internal carbon price is $1 amount per kilo of emissions you are emitting to do a transportation. So what you are doing is comparing equal to equal emissions plus freight cost. So a lot of things started changing in the way that our customers were collaborating with their carriers, collaborating with their suppliers, their customers, in the way that the bigger ecosystem came into an alignment in many ways on the execution part of the shipments, which in the end results in emissions reductions, in cost reductions, so on and so forth.
Okay. All right, I understand. With right now with regulations like European Union ETS and evolving ESG reporting frameworks, many companies see compliance as a burden. we can say. How does VesselBot help them flip that mindset using emissions intelligence, not just to tick the box, but to reduce carbon credit needs, lower compliance costs, and enhance stakeholder trust?
We are looking at things from the having a holistic perspective, so the bigger picture. What we want to achieve is bring that bigger picture to supply chain directors, to logistics directors, and enable them to take action and devise different strategies from what they've been doing up to now. So our way of thinking is resilience in the broader sense. So we are not trying to tell everyone, look, you need to go and reduce your emissions, and this is what needs to be done, and you shouldn't be caring about the cost. We are trying to find those ways and give those information and data to our customers that would enable them to look at things from the bigger picture and the grander scheme of things, and incorporate sustainability and the environmental impact into any decision they make. So this becomes a more strategic initiative, a more, if you like, not just a reporting mechanism, but a mechanism that can drive broader change within logistics, within supply chain. And this is the perspective that we have. And that's how we work with chief supply chain officers, directors of logistics, to enable that and bring those insights that would help them deliver that value to the broader organization. Because, this can be really strategic. It can provide, being resilient can provide a lot of value and strategic value to organizations.
Okay, so resilience and okay. So it's a strategic and resilience mode, we can say, to. Okay. So looking 5 years ahead from now, how do you expect global shippers to manage and use emissions data, and what role do you see VesselBot playing in shaping that future?
Strange question, because it really depends on a number of things.
Okay.
However, we see, despite the fact that we've seen a lot of pushback on regulations and a lot of pushback on the green agenda in general, we see a lot of companies realizing that there is value out of this exercise, especially when you can prove a return on investment to some extent. And we see some leading companies taking all these steps, and we believe that in the next 5 years, the market will have this rationale where emissions data will be part of all tenders, of all RFPs. They will be part of all the decisions being made. For example, a few years back, many companies were not taking reliability of carriers, of ocean carriers, or over-the-road carriers on their tenders. Today, this is something that happens to a large extent. Everybody has reliability KPIs as part of their decision-making at the spot or volume contracts. And this is something we expect that would be the trend going on from now to the near future. And also sustainability and resilience in the sense of combining all this data together and making a different type of decision will be the status quo rather than leading companies moving faster and moving into that. I think we believe that our role will be a leading one in this in this new setting. We already see a lot of companies changing suppliers from older suppliers that were doing something different from what we are doing, and moving to us, and us becoming the supplier of those forward-looking companies. So I believe that we have a few more steps to take to become the dominant player in the market.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm fully covered. Do you have something to add in our?
Perfectly fine from my side as well.
Okay. So thank you so much for your time, for insights. Nice to meet you, and I hope we will be back soon.